Good morning, everyone. It's January 21st, 2019. The month is going by quick, right? So, you gotta wonder what's gonna happen on, the 1st of February. All the welfare queens and SSI recipients and retirees, wonder how fucked they're gonna be. If at all, right? So, but, like I said, I've been struggling to come up with topics. So, I'm going to hit this article. The news about fake news is fake. And this comes from Automatic Earth blog, Paul Largy Meyer. So, in the last few days, I was looking around for stories that could illustrate what fake news actually is, and I had a nice collection. Then last night, Robert Mueller, of all people, clarified what exactly fake news is better than I could have. At first, the BuzzFeed crew, and you had to have hear about this, right? CNN melting down because they reported on some shit BuzzFeed got wrong. But, people like me were fake news, conspiracy theorists, blah, blah, blah. Now, I make mistakes like everybody else, but I have a pretty good eye for good news. And by the way, you know what? Fuck this article. Israel. Now, a few videos back I mentioned how the United States would not be the instigator of Armageddon. It has to be Israel to be the main force there. And of course the Arab countries around it, such as Syria, Iran, Yemen, and so forth. Well, Israel has been striking Damascus since Donald Trump announced the withdrawal from Syria. Of course, this didn't happen, right? Because service members there died, and what a coincidence, right? What a coincidence that Donald Trump announces a troop withdrawal, and then, bam, service members die. Who sacrificed them? You know they were a sacrifice, right? So, biblically speaking, those are the two areas right there that are required for Armageddon. And my son's mother, she told me a couple weeks ago, oh, the apocalypse is so far away. No, it's not. Armageddon's not that far away. We have all the signs for it, right? We have the blood moons, we have the eclipses, we have the increased volcanic and seismic activities, we have the wars and rumors of wars. And look, I'm not a Bible thumper, I think all of you know this. The Bible originates with the Sumerian tablets, and of course they too spoke of this cycle that happens to Earth every so many thousand years. And we're, at the beginning of that cycle. I do believe that's what the Mayan calendar was getting at in there in 2012, and everyone misread it or misunderstood. 2012 was the beginning of the end. The beginning of a new cycle. And we're creeping into this new cycle, and it's going to be filled with tragedy, loss, and suffering. suffering. You know, that's what the biblical Exodus story is. It's talking about the cycle of earth that we're now facing. It's all over. I mean, the water's turning blood red, right? The insect plagues. The reason why the firstborn isn't going to die is because we have better methods of storage in our food. And the reason why the firstborn died back then is because they took the grains and they held back grains to give the firstborn extra. When they gave them the extra grains, it poisoned them and killed them. And we can see the grains in our current time being decimated by weather. We're going to have a major food shortage. People are going to starve to death here on this continent. So, Armageddon, not that far away. All the key players are at each other's throats as we speak. The United States probably won't be in a position to play much of a role in that war. Let me get back to the article before I get off into some other tangent here. So BuzzFeed, they put out a fake story. CNN ran with it, and now they're fucking embarrassed because they like to consider themselves the pinnacle of news. So at first, BuzzFeed's crew that was caught staring straight into the headlights was a feeble response, but was silenced by the Washington Post of all publications. Mueller's team said every bit of the article was false. Not that you can trust Mueller or anyone else from the government, but that's what they said. Excuse me. I still wonder if people now understand better what fake news is, which I think has to do with the fact that the term was monopolized by a section of U.S. media as meaning things that had to do with Trump more or less exclusively. That way, when Trump accused the same media of publishing fake news, they knew their loyal readers would not believe him. But in reality, they've been at it ever since Trump entered U.S. politics. And they dug in even deeper into the anti-Trump trenches. First for political reasons, later for profit. And in the process, especially since they published up-teen pieces a day on the topic, they had to use unproven and biased allegations and innuendo. There was never enough real news to go around to feed the monster they created. That's how we got Russiagate. And there is proof that Donald Trump colluded. It's just not with Russia. They colluded with the Israelis, but for some motherfucking reason, nobody cares if Donald Trump colluded with Israel. Netanyahu. Older people shared fake news on Facebook more than others in the 2016 race. The authors were careful in defining fake news, a term that has been weaponized by many, including President Trump, to dismiss real news they dislike. Reasonable people disagree about where to draw the line and were very conscious of those issues, Professor Guess said. As a result, they assembled a limited list of sites that reliably published fake content based on various sources, including reporting from BuzzFeed News. As best the researchers can tell, the list did not include any websites associated with Russian disinformation efforts, according to Professor Guess. The Facebook and survey data came from a group of about 3,500 people whom the authors tracked during the 2016 election in order to better understand the role of social media played in political discourse. They found that Republican and those who identified as very conservative tended to share the most news from questionable sources, but that tendency may have less to do with the ideology and more to do with what those articles said. Users tend to share stories they agreed with, and the fake news sites were disproportionately pro-Trump. I'm going to give you an example of some of the fake shit Donald Trump says here. Okay? And it's going to pertain to borders. Alright, so Donald Trump likes to talk about how all these drugs are pouring across the southern border. According to a assassinated reporter, and he was assassinated, I believe his name was Larry Grathwold or something like that. I believe. He's the reporter that broke the role U.S. intelligence had in smuggling drugs into the country. Not just intelligence agencies, but the military itself. Donald Trump says that most of the drugs come across the southern border, but most of them actually come from municipal airports and military bases. Don't believe me, just look it up. Just look it up. Human trafficking. They like to say that, and look, I understand that it actually happens, it goes on. I am talking about the rate at which it happens, okay? Human trafficking. He likes to talk about how human traffickers get a hold of some of the young children there, right? Specifically girls. Fair enough. It does happen, but look how many children go missing inside of the United States. Compare the numbers. Which do you think is, more pressing? Probably the massive amounts of children who go missing inside this country, as opposed to children coming to this country. A lot of them manage to make it through, the treacherous journey, and God only knows what happens to them. Some of them may get raped. But then again, those news reports can be a lie simply because they're trying to garner sympathy for these people. It could be, but I doubt it. I doubt that people are lying about children getting raped on their way to the United States border. Okay? And it's a tragedy. Don't get me wrong. It is. We're comparing the numbers, right? Which is a bigger problem. And the bigger problem, undoubtedly, hands down, is the people going missing inside of our borders. And you know me. All of you who watch me on a regular basis, you know me. If you were to come to my home where I live and hang out with me, well, what you see on my video is what you would get in person. I'm not an artificial individual in any sense of the word. So, you know, you can tell some of the YouTubers, like Andy Werski, for example. And I don't have anything against Andy Werski. I like some of his work, but you can tell that his personality is different off camera than it is on. Mine's not. I'm not fake, okay? So, anyway. Donald Trump. And then, of course, you have to question his actual desire to stop these things if he's been on the Lolita Express like Bill Clinton. And if you don't know what that is by now, I will tell you briefly. It is a private jet owned by a billionaire named Jeffrey Epstein. Is that right? Yeah, I think it is. Jeffrey Epstein. There's so many perverts, it's hard to keep them all straight anymore. And Mr. Epstein owns a private island where he takes slaves, literal slaves, for the pleasure of his billionaire friends. You know, like Donald Trump, like Bill Clinton, although I doubt he's a billionaire. His rich friends. Donald Trump's been on this plane. Donald Trump has said some very nice things about this guy. And yet we're supposed to trust him when it comes to child sex trafficking. When it comes to drug smuggling. We're supposed to believe that the southern border is where the drugs pour into this country. Which is, on its face, false. Completely false. So Donald Trump is engaging in fake news himself when he says that all these drugs, the majority, are pouring across the border. And by the way, if these people were really interested in taking the power out of the cartel's hands, the drug cartel's hands, instead of having a war on drugs, they would legalize everything across the board. And sales for the drug cartels would be terrible at that point. They would cease to exist. But you see, they need these cartels. They need them to be the bad guys. Let me continue here. Okay. So the researchers distinguished fake news from real news, but they don't tell us, or the NYT doesn't, what methods they use to tell the two apart. They do tell us that what Trump calls fake news is merely real news he dislikes. It's funny how people say that so easily and never think they themselves might do just that. Yeah. A lot of people are bad about doing biased shit, right? Myself included. I mean, I guess I'm guilty of my own bias. Look at me, how I show all the evil shit cops do, right? I don't show any of the good things they do, and there's got to be some of them out there doing something good, but man, I can't tell. A limited list of sites that reliably publish fake content sounds intriguing, but not convincing. That this list partly comes from BuzzFeed, is hilarious in view of Mueller's indictment of BuzzFeed's article about Trump instructing Michael Cohen to lie. Other than that, the article doesn't really say much. But luckily, Quentin Futrell, personal finance editor at MarketWatch, elaborates. And he tells Quentin to stick to his trade. This guy is basically attempting to debunk the idea that Donald Trump uses fake news or something like that anyway. Alright, so I had to look at this a few times. Here's what I think it says. They studied 3,500 people in 3 waves, of which the initial one was larger than 1,331 people. Since that is the segment of the first wave who shared their Facebook data, we assume not all did. 90% of these 1,331 or 1,198 people shared nothing at all. No fake news. 8.5% of the 1,331 or 114 people did share fake news stories. 18% of those 414 or 20 people were self-identified as Republican over the age of 65. Why does that not surprise me? I mean, it is our gullible grandparents and great-grandparents and our parents who have allowed our country to slip into this shithole that it's become. But anyway, I don't even know why I bothered to share this fucking article. What I said outside the article is better. So, I guess I'll list this as a rant, maybe. Maybe. It's gone on for 22 minutes. I can go on and on if I wanted. But, I think I'll go ahead and end it here. You get the point. The point, just in case you don't, is Donald Trump does talk about fake news. If he doesn't like something that's said, he calls it fake. On the other hand, there's lots of fake news by mainstream media because there's not enough news for them that that lands in favor of their own bias. And by the way, it's the older Americans who are less likely to question authority. And this is evident by the way our country has developed. Instead of it being the land of the free, home of the brave, we have become the land of the fee, home of the slave. And it's because our grandparents, our parents, our great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents were authority-worshipping, yellow-belly bitches. That's why. And they allowed these politicians to do whatever they want. They allowed these politicians to run amok. Right? And here we are, in 2019, many people thinking about civil war because this is not the country it's supposed to be. It's a corporation. And all the races at each other's throats. Oh, well, let me rephrase that. people of color at the throats of white people. Boy, did our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, boy, did they fucking drop the ball. And they dropped it hard. Anyway, I hope you all have a good day. If I see something else, I'll say something else. I'm still working on that conspiracy theory video. I got around 30 clips so far. Part of the wording written as well. Anyway, if you like my content, give me a thumbs up, maybe a share. My PayPal link's in the description box below, and you can always hit me up on Discord. That link is also in the description box. Until next time, kill the state before the state kills you.